Big Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. If one witness says something, no big deal. But if you got 50 witnesses telling you the same thing, there's a pattern there. They can't all be making up the same weird detail.
I agree 100%. I think I think witness testimony is incredibly important, and sure, you can throw some out. Some people are crazy, fine. Okay, some people are crazy. Some people are lying, fine. Some people are lying. But like you said, when you start getting 50 reports where they're reporting pretty much exactly the same thing or variants thereof, like, okay, come on. Did these 50 people get together? Was there a convention, a hoaxing convention? They decided to get together and.
My favorite hoaxing mega theory is that it's actually it's the NBA because most of the reports of Bigfoot come out during the summer, which is their off season, and in order to be part of the NBA, they got to take a few months every year, wear a Bigfoot costume, and run around in their local area and get some fake sightings in. And then back in the fall, they doff the costume and they go back to being a basketball player. Now, other than that, I can't think of anything even remotely close to a logical explanation for how all this hoaxing could be going on. And then you still got to explain how they were doing this before there was an NBA. So they had all these gigantic tall people in the same place at the same time that they could recruit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like the trying to make up an excuse for what else this could be is so much more far-fetched than what it is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the explanations become so silly at some point. It's like I was saying, the report I took recently about the 8-foot guy in the ghillie suit scaring the horses.
Yeah.
And I started asking him, like, well, why do you say it was like why do you think he was hunting or something? It's not hunting season. No, it's not hunting season. This is April or something. This report came in, so it's very recent. And I said, well. And then I said, did you talk to anybody else? Well, we talked to our neighbors, and they said they've been seeing these things, these Bigfoot creatures cross through their yard for, 20 years or something, whatever it was, for years and years, this elderly couple, which I have not talked to them yet, but I'm desperate to talk to them. But
it sounds like you should talk to them.
Yeah, if I can get them to talk, but they, because it was the neighbors of these folks, and that was what they finally, when they finally thought, well, maybe it is something. Other than an 8-foot guy in a ghillie suit, but that's like, how many 8-foot tall people do you know? That's like where I like.
Do you realize how few 8-foot tall people there are on Earth? What's the likelihood that one's walking around here with a ghillie suit on, for God's sake?
Yeah. But and why would why would he be out there? Why would the horses be scared of him? But presumably these aren't wild horses. These are people's pet horses. So why are they scared of a human? And there's so many questions that we begin to go, well, come on now. I don't think there's 8-foot guys in ghillie suits trespassing around here. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. I just saw a report from the Pac West here a couple days ago from 1940s. A guy who was out hunting claimed that a bear chased him on its hind legs. About 1.5 miles out of the woods. And at one point he was running up an embankment, he was out of breath, and he tripped and fell on his face, and the monster very politely stood there and waited for him to stand up again before it continued to chase him. Okay, dude, that's not a friggin' bear. Seriously. Yeah. Predators don't stop when you fall down and politely wait for you to get up so they continue to chase you. That's not how it works.
Yeah, they're not
and
playing
bears
a game.
Don't run on their hind legs for 1.5 miles.
No, not even that. Yeah, and people love to bring up the one from New Jersey from a few years ago, the bear that had injured 4 legs. It was walked around on its hind legs in New Jersey. And like, come on, did you see the way the thing was walking? It was, yes, it had learned to walk on its hind legs because it needed to, but it wasn't like it was a easy gait, for it.
No,
the thing
and show me some video of the poor thing running on its hind legs. Let's see that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. That's the other way. The misidentified bears, you get, it was a bear, it was a bear, it was a bear. It's like, come on. Like, these are mountain men and hunters and stuff that are reporting these. They know what a bear is. Even people around here, they know what bears are. The bear we get around here are not big. We get little scraggly black bears when they come around here. And it's just, these do not account for what people are seeing. I'm sorry. It's just, I'm not buying it. Not for a second.
And I'm a perfect example of that. I grew up in northern Minnesota. The venison all tasted like swamp water, so I wouldn't hunt deer. and we had a county dump 2 miles away. So guess what? We had a bumper crop of around there. Bears. We had bears on our yard at least once a week, all summer long, constantly raiding our garbage can. 2 or 3 times a week was more common. And I would shoot them because yum, yum, yum. There's a bear, and it's on our property, and that's dangerous. And pow. So all I basically did from the time I was like 12 until 18, if I was out hunting in the woods, I was either hunting grouse or bear. So, who knows more about bear than a bear hunter?
Right.
See, and this is what I'm saying, because you get people that have been out there hunting bears for 20, 30 years, and they see something like this, and they go, that was not a bear. Dude, they can tell the difference. They've been shooting and eating bears for decades. They know what a bear looks like and how it moves and acts and smells and everything else, and they just can't make a mistake like that. And especially if you're really scared about it afterwards, too. It's not like, oh, I think I saw something that, well, maybe it wasn't a bear. But it's like they're telling you, their face is like pale white and their eyes are bulging and they're twitching while they're telling you the story. That's not a bear.
Yep. And again, a lot of the people saying, like, oh, it was a bear, are people who've probably never seen a bear in the wild in their life. They may have seen one in the zoo or something, but they love to say, oh, he saw a bear. You weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's like the guest that I just had on here on the last show. He was a hunting guide and fishing guide for like 30 years. And he's seen the Bigfoot go walking across an open clearing, broad daylight, and scared the living crap out of him. There was no denying what it was. And there's absolutely no doubt in his mind that was not a bear. It was really obviously not a bear. So you're going to tell this guy who's been, a wilderness hunting guide for 30 years in northern Montana that he can't tell what a bear looks like in the broad daylight? Shut up.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's just...
It's ludicrous, really, is what it is. It's just grasping at straws. Let's make up some stupid, lame excuse so we can pass this off and go on about our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the armchair skeptics, which a lot of times they'll start offering, like, you talk about your MBA,
the great
hosting
MBA
thing.
Conspiracy.
Yeah, there was I was reading David Weatherly's book on the Black Eyed Kids, and he was talking about the skeptic in there, and basically the skeptic's telling him, like, oh, there's online forums where these teenagers talk about buying these. I'm sorry getting off topic, but it's just an example. They talk about buying these black contact lenses and hoaxing the adults, and David Weatherly's like, well, where are these forums? Point me to them. I want to see them. And of course they can't. He can't ever get to the forums where these the great hoaxing conspiracies get together.
Yeah, where are they getting these from? Well, it's like Tinker Tucker always, everything was some guy in a monkey suit. Well, where is monkey suits or us? I want to know where they're getting these monkey suits from. Let's go find all these monkey suits and get pictures of them so we can compare them to the Bigfoot pictures that we're getting.
Yeah. Because, frankly, the Bigfoot suits I've seen that are available to purchase are awful.
Yeah, they're horribly obviously fake. I mean, really, to make something that looks realistic, like it's got real hair on it and everything, you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to make a suit that looks like that. You're not going to get something like that from a Halloween shop. Doesn't exist.
One of those documentaries, and this was made by the BBC, so they had a little bit of money, and they were going to try to reproduce the Patty thing. And what they came up with was completely silly looking. Like, this is in the 2000s. This is being made, and they got some money, to pay for special effects and so forth. And they tried to reproduce the Patty film, and they came up with this goofy. And immediately upon looking at it, you go, nope, fake. There was no chance at all to mistake that.
I've seen that, and I've also seen the other one that big liar guy Bob Hieronymus and his buddy put together this suit, that was supposed to look like the Patty suit that he had supposedly worn, and they were going to, show him walking in it, and this would debunk Patty once and for all. They spent a small fortune in 20 years putting this friggin' suit together, and again, it was just as laughable as the one you're talking about. It ain't no way, pal. First of all, Bob Hieronymus, you're about 2 feet too short. And secondly, Bob Hieronymus, you need to explain how when they filled out that suit so that your teeny little body would fit in there, never mind the joints don't match up or anything, and you're walking along with this suit on, you're leaving tracks impressed into the ground that were later pressure measured at about 700 pounds. So, Bob, how did you manage to carry this 500 pounds of extra weight on you in this bulky suit while you were walking along that riverbank, you lying piece of crap?
Yep. Yeah. And what special effects guy came up with the arm extensions? Because they weren't using them, as far as I know, in the 60s. They hadn't. It didn't occur to them.
Well, let's not forget this important fact, and for any of you folks that weren't around then, go watch this movie. The original Planet of the Apes came out the same year as the Patty footage. And that was the best with all the budget that they could throw at it that Hollywood could do. And it still isn't as good as the Patty footage.
Oh, it doesn't come close. Does not come close. And they
couldn't even do full body suits. They were just doing from the chest up because that's all that they could make look even like it even remotely was realistic. The rest of it they couldn't do.
And they're good. I mean, they're good of the time effects. You look at them and you go, for the 1960s, cool. Like they did a good job, but it's not Patty.
No.
There's the way Patty moves, and that's one of my my go-to things for people. And of course everyone says, but it's been proved fake. I'm like,
nope.
When was it proved fake? When was it
By
proved
whom?
fake?
But I can provide you with several documentaries on this where it was proven real by actual scientists and experts in locomotion and experts in special effects. And where's this supposed debunking footage? Oh, that's Bob Hieronymus again, that lying piece of crap. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. It's him, and then somehow somebody got it going that Patterson admitted on his deathbed it was fake, which he never did. That's not true.
No, never did. No.
But
as a matter of fact, he talked to Bob Gimlin like the day before he died and told Bob that as soon as he recovered, he had planned another expedition. He was asking if Bob would go with him again. It doesn't sound very much like he swore it off, does it?
Right, yeah. And somehow that got into popular legend that he did, and it's not true. It's simply not true.
No, absolutely not true.
The
other thing people need to keep in mind, too, because some of them will go, well, Roger and somebody else were in it. Roger and Bob were in on it. Or, I mean, Roger and Bob Hieronymus were in on it, and they hoaxed Bob Gimlin. And so that's why Bob is, as honest as he is and as straightforward, he's not lying. That's why he thinks it's real, because they hoaxed him. Well, except for the fact that Bob was actually closer to it than Roger was and got a really good look at it and could see the muscles moving underneath the hair. Sorry, that blows that BS story out of the water, too. Yeah,
which you can see in the film also. I mean,
you can see it in the film. And keep in mind, Roger was like twice as far away as where Bob was. Bob rode across the river and got ready to pull his rifle in case they needed to defend themselves. And that's when Patty turned back and looked. She wasn't looking at Roger. She was looking at Bob because he just ran across the river with his horse. And he's pulling his rifle out, and she's like, oh, what's he up to? Better walk faster.
There's so much, and this is what we have to fight about when you, like, first of all, I don't try to convince too many people. I get a lot of, you really believe this? And I say, well, I believe people are seeing something. I can't tell you exactly what it is. I can't tell you if it's a relic hominid or if it's some sort of primate, or if it's something else weirder. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that I believe people are seeing this, and I believe something real is leaving footprints because the casts are too darn good. When you have somebody like Meldrum saying like he'd have to be an expert on my level to fake these. Like, okay, where are the let's count the number of primate foot experts there are in the world, much less in the areas where these footprints are turning up, and I just don't think you're going to get that many. So
well, it's a good thing that the NBA has a giant budget to hire those guys and keep them silent so that they can fake those footprints all the time.
Exactly.
It's the NBA theory again. Hell fits.
And the secret hoaxer conferences, like the Ohio Bigfoot conference, they must have the Ohio Hoaxer conference every year, and they come in from all around to learn all the new hoaxing tricks.
So they can stay ahead of the scientists trying to debunk them.
Yes.
Some of whom are actually seriously looking into this.
Yeah.
I get the same thing too. I get people asking me, well, you don't believe in Bigfoot, do you? And I always tell them, no, I don't believe in Bigfoot. I know it's real. I've seen it twice in daylight, 60 feet, 40 feet, and once in the dark at 8 feet. So I know it's real. I don't have to believe in it. I've seen it 3 times. That's what's prompted me to be interested in gathering more evidence and finding out more about them, because I know it's real. And I'm disclaimer time here. I'm a horrible skeptic. Oh my God, nobody's going to believe me saying that. It's true. I really came into this. I don't believe in any of this stuff. Show me, where's the scientific evidence for this? Da-da-da-da-da. And then I saw one at like 40 feet in broad daylight and went, okay, that's real. What else could be real? Because they lied to me about this. They said there was no such thing as monsters. That's a monster right there. By any measuring stick, that is a monster. And it's real. So what else is out there that they've been lying to me and telling me isn't real? So at that point, it's like I'm still a horrible skeptic, but I'm now an open-minded horrible skeptic that will actually look at the evidence and see if there's anything there before I get disinterested in it, I guess. And unfortunately, that leads you to find out lots more things that you probably don't want to find out. Because when you start investigating some of these other cryptids, you start finding out, oh, God, there's good evidence for these too. Oh, no, I don't want to find out about that.
Right. Yeah,
well, now you've had some actual experiences with Bigfoot now, haven't you?
Well, yeah, and here's the like, I've seen something big and fast in the woods. Right. I didn't see its head, so I'm not 100%, can say it's definitely Bigfoot, but I saw something that was, I'm guessing. I often say, and I have to, qualify this. My first thought was moose. Now I'm in southern Pennsylvania. We don't have moose here. And the reason I say that is because I've seen moose in the wild, and they're so big they were shocking. Like, I grew up on a farm. I grew up around horses and stuff. I saw a moose in the wild in Massachusetts. It was like, whoa, that's so much bigger than a horse. And
yeah.
So that and you're going through. I think it's very common when you see something that doesn't, sort of fit or doesn't belong. You go through this checklist in your head, like, what is that? Is that first I'm like, is that a buck? No, way too big, way too fast. Is that what could that have been? Because it was a very quick sighting. It was quadrupedal, but it was the front end was up. The back wasn't parallel to the ground. If I have to say, I'll say it was running like a gorilla. Again, I have never come out and said I definitely saw a Sasquatch because I didn't see the head. Its head was down.
Right.
But it was big, it was fast, it was black and gray, and it was quiet. Didn't make a sound. And it went through the brush quiet, moved faster than anything I've ever seen in the woods, impossibly fast. And I followed it, not out of bravery. I followed it. I wasn't thinking. I sat down later. I called.
I'm sorry, Timothy. I've heard this a few times too, where people see something, they're not sure what it is, and they're just like so into, I got to go see what this is, that they don't even think about until later on. What the hell am I doing?
Oh
I
yeah,
know what this thing is, and I'm following it in the woods, and I don't even have a gun. What the hell am I thinking?
It was I had called Tony Merkel from the Confessionals podcast. I called him up to tell him about it, and it was only as I was telling him about it, like it was that day. It was a couple hours after that I sat down, and like as I'm talking to him, I sat down. I was like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? Because if something wanted to lead me into a trap, I took the bait. And I thought about this several times lately. No matter what it was, if it was leading me into something, I took the bait and I went for it. What stopped me was right in the middle of the trail, and I'd been there to the same area about 3 weeks before. And it's not a hiking area. It's not a pleasant area to hike through. This is springtime. This was in April, and all the thorns had grown up, and the poison ivy and stinging nettle, and with a copperhead I saw as I was going through there that day. I came out covered in ticks. So it's not. This is no place anybody goes to hike for fun.
Right.
It's just nasty. It's a creek bottom down in this. Really, they call it in the old days they called it a river down here. It's a Cadorus Creek, but they used to call it a river. It's so big, it's navigable water. It's a great big creek.
Wow. Yeah.
And out of York, and it heads north to the Susquehanna River. And this is the area right before it gets to the Susquehanna River, and it's just all grown up. It's just it's not. No one's hiking there for fun. So 3 weeks previous, I'd been there, didn't really see anything. Interestingly, I picked up a raccoon skull that was in the middle of the trail that day. about the place where I saw the raccoon skulls, where I looked up and saw this thing, and it headed south, and I followed it south, like I said, probably maybe half, 3/4 of a mile before I came to right in the middle of the trail, and this wasn't there 3 weeks earlier. There was a deer skull just impaled on a branch at eye level, and it was so weird that it just stopped me in my tracks, because sure, a person could have done it, sure,
yeah,
but who and why? Like, who's down in there in the 3 weeks that I have, since I was there? They've come down there. They've either brought a deer skull with them and decided to impale it on the branch, or they found one when they were there. I mean, it was a bizarre thing to have happen, but that was kind of snapped me out of my sort of hypnosis of following this thing, and I ended up keeping that skull and carried it out of there with me. But that's where I turned around, and I wasn't particularly like spooked at the skull. Like a lot of people said, oh, that was a warning. Maybe I didn't take it that way. I almost took it as, like, to me, it really felt almost like it was left there. Like, and later on, you start thinking, and maybe this gets a little woo, but I started thinking, like, did it see me pick up the raccoon skull and say, like, oh, you like that? Well, how about this? And it put the deer skull up there, but I don't know. I mean, that's all conjecture. It's and it's
two weird things that I can bring up in my experience that relate to this. One is when we were at camp on the Blackfoot for 3.5, 4 months off and on, and the Squatches on the other side of the river obviously got very used to us being there. They started coming in stealing food out of camp. And, as much as we were around this area constantly, bizarrely enough, in mid-October, all of a sudden, I found a beaver skull about 2 feet off of our main trail, about 30, 40 feet from camp. Now, you would think going down that trail practically every day for months that I would have seen it. But no.
Right.
And the other thing is, when I was up in Patty Canyon, I found a skeleton tree, and I found their, like, little trail. And their trails are really weird. They stop and start all over the place. It's not like a standard trail that keeps disappearing and reappearing. But I managed to track it and follow it, and I got to another area on the same trail, and there was another bone in the tree. And then I started going into this thicket that the trail led into, and I got a serious case of the heebie-jeebies, and the dragon on me leaped on top of my head and freaked out, telling me there was something watching us, and we got the hell out of there. And I went over to the far side of the thicket that the trail exited through and followed it about another 100 feet, and there was another bone in a tree. At which point I started thinking, well, they've marked their trail with bones. This trail that they walk on pretty regularly, they've got marked with bones, but the trail was leading to their hunting spot. This wasn't like a regular, let's go down here and get some water, or this is an area where we make tree structures, or no, the only trail I've ever found marked with bones led to a hunting spot. So if you find a trail marked with bones, that might not be a good place to go to.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, another reason to get the heebie-jeebies on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just retelling that story. And if any of you missed it, it's on Patty Canyon number 3, I think, or number 2 or number 3 is where I actually found that thicket and started to go in it. And had to run the hell back out of it. I've had some people look at that footage and go, it looks like there's something back there. And I've actually been back there and looked a couple times, and everything that's in the video I can account for. So I couldn't find anything in there that I couldn't account for. But, the one thing I can account for is my dragon, who I would carry with me habitually everywhere, camping, going to the store, whatever. The only time I ever had her, that's the only time she ever reacted and like got off my shoulder and literally leaped up onto the top of my head and dug her claws in. So yeah, dogs and stuff don't have that effect on her. They don't scare her at all. So whatever it was huge. And she was serious about, let's get the hell out of here. So that's why I took it real serious. Like, this is not normal behavior. I'm out of here. And it was, again, one of those, suddenly it's creepy and you feel like something's watching you and it's dead still. And then the dragon reacts like that, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. That's it.
Yeah.
No more warning.
Well, we've gotten, and this seems like more lately, like I keep getting more of these reports. Like someone from Colorado was telling me he keeps finding skins hung up in trees, And around here we get a lot of like deer legs bent at the crook and balanced kind of hanging on a high branch, which is like who again?
That's
if
weird.
People, yeah, if it's people
that's
doing
not
this
big cat behavior. They'll cram the whole corpse up in the tree in a crook in the branches. They won't just carry it apart up there and leave it.
Yeah, these are just the legs, and they're high. They're high in the tree. Some of them are higher than we can reach.
That's weird.
Yeah, and to me that's just like what and or even like in the case you're talking about, are bears sticking bones in trees? It's not bear behavior. You know what I mean?
No. Well, in a couple of these cases where they had the bones, it would have required hands to put it there. One of them was a piece of vertebrae that had been carefully wedged in between a little crotch between two branches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there's no way in hell, unless you had hands, you couldn't do that.
Right. The skull I found was impaled on a branch. It went up in the where the spine would have connected to the skull, in that hole in the back of the skull. So something placed it on the branch.
Mm-hmm.
It's something or someone with hands. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that really narrows it down a lot. Well, it's either humans or Bigfoot. There's your two choices.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like tree structures. To me, were something that I was kind of hands off for a long time because I was like, I don't know, and you see a lot of stuff I see that people put up. I go, well, that maybe, but it looks like it could be a snow break or something. I can't I can't say, and I try not to crap all over people's evidence because I wasn't there. Like a lot of times people send me photos, and they'll say, do you see the Bigfoot in this photo? And honestly, sometimes I can't, but I always tell them, like, look, I wasn't there. You were there. You took the picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can't, all I can tell you is I'm not seeing what you're telling me is there, but, I wasn't there. So, I'm not trying to tell you didn't see what you thought you saw, or you didn't take a picture of what you thought you saw. But the tree breaks, I was kind of like, I don't know about those. It's not that I didn't believe them, because I'd seen some that were obviously really interesting, like when they're huge and there's things balanced in there that that just in no way could have fallen that way, or there's twists or there's bends. But it's again when I started seeing them and looking at them and going, well, there's a dead tree laying over a living tree, and the living tree is bent around into this teepee with a bunch of other trees. Like, okay, something with hands did that, like that's all I can say is something with hands did that. Or what really got me is when I was in Michaud State Forest and I was looking around and I came upon one, and I'm looking, it's this gigantic kind of teepee structure. And I said, same kind of thing, there's living trees, there's an upside down tree with, the roots are up, as part of this.
Totally
and
not normal, yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I'm like, there's no way they fell like this. There's no possible way. It had, like, this tree had to be bent into it, and it's like, okay, this means that people came to the side of the mountain with ladders. If it's people, it needed to be multiple people with ladders. There's no way they could have reached up that high, And it's just at that point, I said, okay, I'm seriously behind the tree structure thing. I mean, I started seriously looking at them more at that point, and now and then you start seeing things like twists and so forth, and you go, okay, like there's something here.
Yeah.
And
no, I totally agree with you, because I was on the fence for a long time too, because a lot of, especially from the East Coast, most of the big forests have been cut down, so a lot of the tree structures and snaps and stuff like that are of course made with smaller trees. So it's like, okay, well, a human could have done this, or a deer walking through here could have snapped this little twig, or a bear was playing with this branch and snapped it off, or there's a ton of possible explanations for something like that. But when you see some of this gigantic stuff, a couple of years ago I was over in the Skulkaho and we did a bunch of filming and stuff, and I came back and put it up on my group, and one of my Scotch friends from Kentucky contacted me, and we were both, we like to give each other a hard time, and he goes, wow, man, you spend a lot of money on this one. It's like picking on me as if I was hoaxing it and everything. And he goes, I estimate you needed a team of about a dozen guys out there for a couple of weeks and a helicopter to move that one structure into place there. Price about $280,000 according to my estimates. You think you're going to repeat that on your video? And it's like, what he was just pointing out is like, look, I found an X structure made out of 2 entire lodgepole pines that were moved into place on top of a shelf of rock on the far side of a river, nowhere near a road or where any heavy equipment could get to. Okay, what can move a 3-ton lodgepole pine, carry it up a 10-foot cliff, and put it neatly into place with another one the same size and make an X out of it?
Right. Yeah, and I think I saw that. I think I saw you post pictures of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I posted that one a few times.
It's just, yeah, and
I know,
you
it's mind-boggling, and then you go look at it, and it's like, they're not stumps. These things were snapped off and moved here. And there's no way equipment, like that's why he was joking about the helicopter. That would have been the only feasible way that humans could have moved those things into place and set that up. And why would they do it?
Right, right. Yeah, and it's I've one recently. It's like the entire top of a tree was impaled, top down, into the ground. A huge tree, like I could not do that. Like, so I'm looking around. I don't see any trees around that this thing, the top cracked out, and it just happened to fall perfectly straight down, into the ground. And I'm thinking, like, I couldn't lift this thing. It would take at least 4 guys to have done this. And he started going, like, okay, like, what are the chances? What are the chances that this fell this way? A, and B, there's no trees around here that the tops are out of. So it just becomes, I guess I can't say 100% Sasquatch did it because I didn't see him do it. But come on, like, people.
Well, it's again, like you're saying, we can't guarantee that Sasquatch did it, but you explain to us what did it, because that's not natural. Something did that, and if it wasn't a human, what the hell was it? Right.
Well, it's the construction crew that they're recruiting at the Ohio Hoaxing Conference.
They got that big NBA paycheck, and they got to go out and do something with it. So.
Right. Yeah, they're hiring these crews with nothing better to do but make tree structures and hope that people find them. It's
and they put it in the most improbable, impossible to get to locations in the hopes that someone will find them there.
Yeah.
I know, it's hilarious, Timothy. You and me that have to deal with this all the time have more of a sense of humor about it because we run into it so often. It just gets to be such it's like a huge inside joke to people like us. Like, seriously, you guys really have you even thought about what you're saying?
Yeah. And then you get people who tell you, follow the brakes, follow them. They're going to lead you to something, and sure enough, they do. I mean,
yeah.
So
I know I've tested that. I actually tested that on Patty Canyon 7 was a good example of that. Okay, here's a brand new break that we haven't documented yet. It's the bottom of this huge structure that's laying on this hillside, and it's not pointing the same direction as the breaks that were above and behind it. It's pointing off, instead of due south, it's pointing off to the southeast. So let's take a compass heading on it and go to the southeast. Well, there's no trail there or anything, so we're just cutting straight across country. And we go down to the bottom of the slough, and there's this tall 3-foot grass in the middle of this tall 3-foot grass. There's a stake structure on the ground. No noticeable tracks going in or out. You go on the far side of it, through this little copse of woods, across the road, there's an embankment with some fairly obvious impressions that something huge went up it, and flattened down areas in the grass above it that look like 16 or 17-inch footprints. So you go about another 100 yards, and there's another huge structure, exactly the same as the one we found on the ground a little ways back, except it's like 4 or 5 times as big. But other than that, it's the same structure, and it's right on the same line. What are the odds of that?
Yeah, it just gets to the point where it's like, okay, like I can't take a skeptic out here and prove to them Bigfoot did this, but can you prove to me that weather did this?
Yeah, exactly. How does weather make this 4-sided structure with multiple layers on it?
Yeah, or the ones where they're balanced into it. That's the other thing. Where the one I found in Michoud, the big teepee looking thing, one of them was balanced into it, and I'm like, come on, like it's balanced into this huge log that's balanced into this, the rest of the structure. It gets nutty. And then I started looking at the fellow who took me out in the show was like look at these, I call them rainbow bends. I don't know. I would think other people call them arches. And they're interesting, and I think some of those do happen naturally. But then when you start seeing like a whole bunch of them in the same area, and you go, like, okay, why is there 12, 13 of these in an area of like 20, 30 square yards? Like, what's up with that? Like,
exactly.
They all decided.
That's like that one hillside we found in the Schuylkill. We were going down the road and went, look, there's an arch on that steep hillside. Stop. It's like 30, 40 feet up. Let's go check it. So we got up to that one, started documenting it, and right off to the left, there's a huge tree snap. Oh, cool. So we go and look at that one, and then right off to the right of that one, about 30, 40 feet away, there's another arch. And it was just like that all the way up this hillside.
Mm-hmm.
You just kept leapfrogging back and forth. There's a snap, there's an arch, there's another structure, there's another snap, there's another arch. And it's, there's just no way all of that could have happened randomly in that small of an area. And, you could see each structure. As soon as you got to one, you could see another one. But when you were standing 2 away, you couldn't see the other one. You had to get to the next structure in order to see the one after that.
Right,
so
right.
It's just, it gets to the point where the odds on this being natural are just so long, it's so far-fetched that it's not even worth considering.
Mm-hmm. And now I will say, like, for folks on the other side or who think I'm not looking at these critically, I came upon an area where I was convinced for a long time, like, man, there's a lot of tree breaks here. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, I can't, they're not, they're going in different directions, so it wasn't a storm that came through. And I'm just looking and looking and looking, and then suddenly it occurred to me what I was looking at. This was an area that was once a pine forest. The deciduous trees had come in and grown up, and all the pines were rotting and breaking.
Mm-hmm.
So
they weren't getting enough sun anymore, yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I realized, okay, this is these are just naturally rotting and breaking. That's what's going on here. So I'm not, not every break am I looking at and going, oh yeah, that's definitely,
Oh, absolutely. That's with me. I'm extremely suspicious about tree breaks and stuff, especially because so much of that can be attributed naturally. And then you get weird things like the area I was just talking about on the far side of the ridge line from that, there's a tree snapped off about 4 feet up. It's like 8 inches thick, and the top of the snap is pointing right over the ridge line to where this huge glyph is on the hillside on the other side of the ridge. Okay, well, maybe that was natural, except that it was fresh when it was broke. So maybe it was just a microburst and it hit just that one tree. Well, but how about the little 6-foot tall one that was actually dead and as thick as my thumb that was 5 inches from it and didn't fall over?
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, that's when you start to get the multiples like that. Like, I found a maybe break. I'm looking at it, and I'm going, okay, that's a maybe. But it pointed down this trail. So I head down the trail, and then I find a twist. And then I'm going, okay, well, that's interesting. So we had a maybe leading to, like, something with hands.
Another maybe,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I followed it further, and I find a rock, like, shoved into the crotch of a tree. Not higher than I could reach it. You know what I mean? So it wasn't higher, that it wasn't impossible that a human did it. But here we have another, and followed that one, the way that pointed, and came to another twist. So now you have these multiple things happening, and you go, all right, someone spent a lot of time doing this. If it's a human, they're thinking about it. They're going, okay, I'm going to do this series of things, and for what reason?
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting there, Timothy, I've noticed this, and I don't know if you have, maybe you can back me up on this, but if it's not an actual tree snap or something, like they're placing a hide or bones or something like that, or a rock in the tree, it always seems like it's at or above our eye line. Like what's at their eye line that they're going to notice just looking straight ahead. That's where they put it.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that was definitely, it would have been slightly above my eye line. Like I said, I could reach it, but it wasn't,
Yeah, it's like if you were 7, 8, or 9 feet tall, it would be pretty much directly in front of you. You'd see it. But if you're human size, it's up above where you look normally.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And like I said, that skull that day was right at eye level for me. So
he may have just left you a little present on that one. That's really crazy.
Yeah. I go over that a lot in my head because I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there that day, but it has made me a little more. I'm not as eager to run after things. I think I'll hopefully I'll stop and think next time.
This reminds me of Kat telling me a story about an area where there was a troop that humans kept coming in there too much and hunting and whatnot, and they were apparently getting really sick of it because they were making bigger and bigger X structures all the time. And dumb humans, we can't read X tree structures, so we didn't know what it was. So they all, hunters and everything, just kept piling into the area. And she said the last time they went into it, she went in and looked into the area. They didn't have any new X structures. They had taken a tree directly on this path where most of the humans were walking and decorated it like a Christmas tree with skulls and bones all over it.
Wow.
And she says when it gets to the point where they do something like that, oh, God help you, do not go into that area.
Wow.
That's the last friggin' warning you're going to get.
Yes. See, there's another area that we've been looking into, and this is one I was on Sasquatch Chronicles recently talking about the weird eye glow that we were getting there. And we had a number of things happen there. Some I was there for, and some I was not. A friend of mine got a log thrown at him there. We had a rock thrown at us. I actually had tape running. You can hear the rock hit the Jeep as we're standing there. My friend and I saw something very large and very quick and very quiet, but we both saw it. Again, I had tape running, thankfully. You hear us both turn to each other. Did you see that? At the same time. And that was at night. It kind of crossed across the path. I called it a flash, and a lot of people thought I was talking about a flash of light. And it was a flash of movement. It was just that fast. We saw it, but we definitely saw something. But we were hiking in there one time, and I was with my buddy, and as we were coming back, I told him, I said, and now this is the area where we saw later on. I would see this weird eye glow, and there was a big tree down across the path, and we actually had to climb through this tree to get through it. And then on the way back, more had been added to it, so we were able to climb through it on the way up. And he's saying no, that was there. And I'm saying, I'm not talking about the tree. I'm talking about all the other stuff that's jammed into the so we can't climb through it. Dude, we just kind of climbed through these branches on the way up. And so he wasn't 100%. I just think, to me, it was like a difference of opinion on that one. But I was like, man, I feel like something jammed stuff in there when we were there. But that's the place where we're seeing this weird eye shine that's changing colors. And again, I was calling it weird lights until I heard a guy come on Wes's show and describe the same thing we were seeing. The guy from Texas described exactly what we were seeing there. And I don't know how to explain it, but these things were changing colors and moving, but they were moving in the range of something standing up or something climbing a tree, about that speed and about that distance they were moving. We went back during the day. I hiked in there a couple of days later just to see if I could find any explanation for what this eye shine was. I didn't see anything, but for some reason I never went back to the same place we were looking at night during the day until somewhat recently. We went back there, and there was a big X structure right where we were standing.
Oh, geez.
Right inside the tree line, giant X structure. And then where we were seeing the lights was on the side of the hill. It was much closer than I thought. On my podcast, I estimated it was 100 to 200 yards, and it was much closer than that. It was probably half that. It was probably 75 yards. And they were, and we've had we've been there at night where we could just hear them walking around us. You could just sit in the middle. There's a parking area. You can just kind of sit there and you can just hear them walking around. And in the summer, you'll never see them. We never saw the eye glow or whatever it was in the summer. Never saw it till the leaves were off the trees. But they would just walk around. You could just hear them walking around. And you could see, if you look behind the area where we park, there's lights, man-made lights back that way, and you can see stuff crossing in front of those lights in the summer, and it's just so creepy. So deer aren't going to hang around people, you know what I mean? They're not going to just hang out there. So something's just walking around. You can actually see it cross in front of these lights, and it's one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. But I won't go in there alone anymore. I was hiking in there alone for a while, and I won't do it. Not a good idea. Don't do that. Yeah.
It says the guy who was just walking up the river by himself in grizzly country without a gun earlier today. Okay, I'll shut up now. But I've seen a lot of wild animals with eye shine, and I've never seen their eye shine change color. We had a guest on my show, and I wish I could remember which one it was specifically, but I remember the story. There was two people, and they both had flashlights, and they were standing like 10 feet apart, shining their lights in the same direction. You see that glow over there? Yeah. Does that look like eye shine to you? Yeah. And the one of them was seeing green eye shine, and the other one was seeing eye shine that was a different color. And they were pointing their flashlights in the same area. Well, arguing about it. Well, it's this color. No, it's this color. No, it's this color. So finally, the one of them walked over to where the other person was, and he kept the flashlight on the spot, and he could see the eye shine change color as he moved over toward where the other flashlight was. It switched over to that color where that person was standing. So at that point, we sort of decided that it had something to do with the angle of the light hitting it, of which color that you're getting back.
That might be the case with these. It might. I'm willing to accept that as a possibility. Absolutely, because we were standing at different angles, and a lot of times we would say like no, come over here where I am and look at it from this angle. Yeah. So that the only thing I'll say is my buddy had a green laser with him, and it was super powerful, like 10-mile green laser. And I started me with all the good ideas. I've always been the idea man in my life, and then like hey, shoot the laser right into that light, like see what happens. Because I didn't think of it as eye shine this time. I thought there was some kind of weird light, like supernatural.
Yeah.
I did man-made. I didn't know what it was. It was just a weird light in the woods at this point. To me, and it's like just hit it with your laser, see what happens. He would hit them with the laser, they would turn red. Now again, I don't know if it was a green laser. I don't know if it was just that's the way whatever light reflection happened to work off of the green, but it seemed like he would hit them with that, and then they would turn red. So I don't know.
I don't know if you caught it or not, but I actually listened to that last show he did with Wes, and read the comments underneath it, and there was a gentleman that came on there, I believe he was an eye doctor, and he was talking about possible explanations for why you could be seeing different color eye shines from different angles. He had a really nice scientific explanation for it, so you might want to go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. But it does pretty much match up with what we're talking about there, that it could be just the angle that you're seeing it from. And, I mentioned when I did my second encounter in the dark, where I could see it reflecting the porch light, it was kind of a lime green color. And then I talked to Bear and a couple of the outlaws about that, and they said basically the same thing. Yeah, the same booger can have different color eye shine depending on the angle you're looking at it.
Wow.
If it's looking directly at you, it'll be a different color than if it's... That one wasn't looking directly at you, is what they said, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, that makes sense, too. If you want some prey to come walking right up to you, you don't direct your gaze on it because they'll feel you looking at them. You look off to the side.
Right. Yeah.
Which did nothing to comfort me.
and it's easier to, I would like there to be a more natural explanation for that than a supernatural or a lot of the theories that people come up with for Bigfoot are science fiction, and until you can prove, like the dimensional thing. Well, that's an interesting theory, and again, I'll do a lot of these shows, big national show, AM show. Everyone's probably heard it. And they always want to nail you down. They're like, well, what is it? Well, is it? And I won't chime in and say, oh, it's definitely an ape, or it's definitely supernatural, or it's definitely, because I don't know. And until we know, we can't say. But the theories like the dimensional things and stuff, it's I tell people it's science fiction until you can prove it.
I was doing an interview with somebody, and they asked me that question. And it wasn't Wes. It was somebody else. I can't even remember who it was. And they were saying, what do you think? What do you think? You've seen them 3 times. What do you think they are? And I said, well, which one? Well, the first one. What do you think the first one was? And I said, solidified terror.
Yeah.
That was the impression I got from it. Oh, that's a living nightmare, and it's real. It's 2:00 in the afternoon, and it's bright and sunny. It's 40 feet away. Holy crap! I'm going to run now.
Right.
I've never been any, other than the second encounter, which, if anything, was even worse. That was the scariest I've ever been in my life, and I've had bears stalk me and all kinds of horrible things happen. People pointing machine guns at me, and so it has not been an uneventful life. I have plenty of other things to compare it to, and there's nothing even close to that. Not even close.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was interesting how you were saying, like, you just blocked it out, completely blocked it out, and then you got angry with your friend when he brought it up again. That's very...
Yeah, when you remember it, that was my first reaction. I just immediately got furious with him because it was, all of a sudden I remembered this, and I did not want to remember it. I had nice, blissful, hysterical amnesia for a couple of years and had completely forgotten that it ever happened.
When you remembered, did you get nightmares and stuff?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, for years.
Yeah.
Years. I still have nightmares about it occasionally. And, that kind of, it drove it home to me again when I did your show there a week ago or so, when we were talking about those encounters, because as many times as I've explained those to people and told that story, I can't get away from that reaction when I tell it. I still almost break down in tears and start freaking out when I tell that story because it's, it's just so damn scary. This isn't some friggin' science fiction story. This is real. It really happened to me. It was scary as hell, and I really don't even like telling that story. Or, Class A encounters. The third one is kind of funny. Okay, he glared at me. He gave me a dirty grimace. Ooh, that wasn't nearly as bad as the first two. I'm making progress.
Yes, I mean that's so common though that again, this is something that people talk about a lot. The fellow I mentioned earlier who was attacked locally here, took me a long time to track him down, a whole long time. He had no internet presence, very, very private guy. I called him up and eventually I had to write him a letter. I couldn't find his phone number anywhere. He wrote me back, gave me his phone number. I called him up. It took me about 6 months to draw the story out of the guy, and I still don't have the timeline exactly clear because he just doesn't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
But what happened was he went up into this area in his car just for a thrill one night. His car wouldn't start. He sat there in his car. Something kept coming up to his car and tapping on it and slapping the side of his car. He never saw it, but he got freaked out. He was there for hours and hours. It got to be about 4 a.m, and he said, "I can't stay here anymore. I got to go." Now this is in the 70s. He didn't have a cell phone or anything. He got out of the car and he said he started running, and he ran square into something. And he wasn't a Bigfoot.
God.
Yeah, he wasn't a Bigfoot guy. He told me, I ran into a monster. That's what he told me. A big, hairy monster. And he said it was upright. It was bigger than any man ever could have been. And what happened was this thing beat him down. It sent him to the hospital. The newspaper article said he was sent to the hospital with scratches on his face. And he said no. He said, I spent a week in the hospital from this thing. He had some form of amnesia from the head injury it gave him. And the police went back. They found his car with the back door open, and they were able to start. The car started right up for the police. So that's a weird thing that you get sometimes with this stuff, where cars won't start and so forth. But he didn't like talking to me. Like I said, it took me a long time to draw the story out, and I called him up, and I wanted to meet with him and get the story on tape, if not for my podcast, just for posterity's sake. Just like, let me get this on tape and really document it and get the timeline, because I'm not 100% sure on like whether the police found him or who called the police or how he ended up exactly in the hospital. And I wanted to get the whole timeline right. And he stopped talking to me. He said my girlfriend hates when I talk to you because I'll wake up screaming for the next 2 weeks from nightmares.
Poor guy. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I didn't get beat down by one. Just to let my audience know, people always, some of these so-called experts, they try and tell you that Bigfoot is non-aggressive. And these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're completely full of crap. There's plenty of articles, there's plenty of reports, there's plenty of newspaper accounts of Bigfoot getting aggressive and attacking people. And just so the listeners out there know this, and you can try and guess who it was. I've had not one but two guests on my show that have been physically attacked by Bigfoot. One of them spent months in the hospital and had almost every bone in their body broken. So don't try and tell me that Bigfoot are non-aggressive and peaceful and won't hurt people, because you're full of crap. I know people that have got the medical records to prove it that have been attacked by these things.
After talking to this guy, I was at a local conference, a paranormal, supernatural conference, whatever it was, and some guy came up and very tentatively started talking to me, and he starts telling me another story. And he says, this didn't happen to him. He said, this happened to my best friend. He was running through the woods and this area and ran square into a big, hairy, upright thing, and it broke his arm. It broke his arm. And I've seen some other reports around, and I think, honestly, I think they don't like to be touched. I don't think they like it when we touch them. And I think that's why these two guys ran into him, and I think if they would have ran by them, if they would have seen them or somehow been able to stop, I think maybe they would have been okay. But I think it's the fact that they touched them, and that was like, nope. And I think
the one person I was referencing has had close interaction with a troop, and several of which apparently don't like him, and one of them got out of line and slammed him. The other person had an ongoing war with these things for a couple of years as they kept trying to invade this person's property, and the person with the property, and then apparently they were on the border between two troops, because they had two different troops that were on their land. The one of them was sort of just leaving them alone, the other one was messing with them. They finally got to the point where this other troop wasn't messing with them anymore. And then one day they heard their dog freaking out, ran out the door of the cabin and looked, and it wasn't one of the members of either troop. It was a different kind of Bigfoot that was there, and it actually had their 170-pound husky up in the air and was about to kill it. And the person in question scooped up their .30-06 from right next to the door and proceeded to lay 3 rounds into its chest. And then it got there and picked them up and slammed them into the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, after it was shot 3 times at close range with a .30-06 in the chest.
Wow.
And the person in question actually knows better and knows where they're supposed to shoot him, and I'm not going to go into those details or anything. But they just said, I saw it attacking my dog. I panicked, and I started shooting it like it was a human, which was my mistake. I still got 3 30-06 rounds in it at close range before it could get up, grab me, and slam me into the ground. And then apparently they regained consciousness for a very short, a few seconds, realized their dog had grabbed onto their arm and was like trying to drag him toward the cabin, and then woke up again about a month later in the intensive care in the hospital. So, you can't tell me that Bigfoot don't attack people. I know people that it's happened to. So. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And again, the guy I was talking to, he wasn't like. It took me saying, do you think it was Bigfoot? And here it is, 40 years later or whatever, and he gets real quiet and goes, oh my gosh, maybe that's what it was. It never occurred to him. To him, it was just a monster, And he didn't like talking about it. He was not looking for notoriety at all. He didn't want to be, I had to drag the story out of him. But it's the, same area that people, even today, they're reporting screams and this weird stuff. Same area I found the skull. That same area where I found the skull in the tree. So,
and then you get the trolls jumping on and going, oh, this person's just a hoaxer. They made up this story and stuff. Like, dude, if you knew the backstory on this, you would just shut up. You'd throw yourself off a cliff right now for being a complete idiot. Because this person didn't want to come on the show. I spent a year tracking them down and browbeating and cajoling and practically bribing them to come on the show and tell their story, and they still didn't want to do it. Does that sound like a hoaxer?
Yeah. What purpose would the fellow I'm talking about, who, he has no reason to hoax. He stopped talking to me because he said, like you said, my girlfriend doesn't like when I talk to you. I'm not talking to you anymore about this. He stopped talking. You know what I mean? So if he was going to hoax, why not continue? He's not looking for attention. He's not looking, and wasn't a Bigfoot guy by any stretch. He just wanted to forget it.
Well, see, and that's another thing a lot of people forget about this too. It's like, what's the end game? If it's just, I want to pull a prank on one of my friends, they're not going to go very far, do that much effort to just pull a prank on their friends. if they're going to try and, do anything else with it, the only other really thing that you could think of as a motivating factor for this is money. And if there's no end game where they can conceivably make money off the story, why are they doing it?
Right. Yeah, there's an encounter. It's online and it's been supposedly debunked. It's a cop car who's you can hear the footage. I think he's got his radio on or something, and something runs across in front of him, and you hear him say, "What was that?" And he goes back to the, and of course, later on, they say, "Oh, it's some kids in a costume," and you go, "Wait a minute, like."
If I was going to hoax anybody, the last person I would hoax is a cop with a gun. Yeah, and you're going to shoot you and then ask questions later. They're a cop; they can get away with it.
Running across the road in the middle of the night, like you're just waiting there in an ape suit for a car to come. I mean, it's not that it never happened. Somebody did get killed recently doing it, but there's a reason they got killed.
Yeah, that was here in Montana, by the way.
Was it? Okay.
2012, idiot in ghillie suit, drunk, trying to hoax people, standing out by the freeway. Third car that came by was two girls from Idaho that don't have any laws about hunting Bigfoot, apparently, so they ran them over good, whether that was accidental or on purpose. That was the end of the hoaxing. And again, here's something else to consider. You're in Montana, wearing a ghillie suit, hoaxing. Where is he? He's right on the freeway. He's not out in the middle of the woods leaving tracks. He's right on the freeway where people are going to see him. And, you have to be pretty much half insane to do that in Montana anyway, because everybody here has a gun, and there's no laws against hunting Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, people are very serious about trespassing here. You'd be crazy to do this stuff here. It makes no sense, the hoaxing thing.
Well, another good example of that is Texas, where it's like, your land is your castle. If somebody comes on your property, you've got every right to blow them away. Well, that doesn't really encourage me to want to wear a monkey suit and run across somebody's property at night in Texas. But a lot of that seems to be happening.
Oh, yeah. The other thing that happened with the fellow who got attacked, the local fellow, is the police told him at first he ran into a guy wearing skins. So he's giving the report, and the police were like, "No, you ran into a guy wearing skins," and he's like, "No, I didn't. This was way bigger than a human." And then they told him the eventual report, I think, read that he ran into a cow.
And the cow mugged him.
So this guy grew up on a farm. He said, "I work with cows every day. This was not a cow. There's no way this was a cow." But and I've run into a couple other reports from York County too, where it was put down as a cow, and I don't know that this is a big conspiracy with the police, although it may be, but I think probably it's just easier to file a report that it's a cow than it is something unknown that you might have to continue investigating.
Well, from what I gather, some of the departments have a chief of police that'll kibosh it and won't let them put out a report like that. And other ones, they're sort of free to report it if they want to, but it means you're going to get ridiculed by everybody else on the police force if they do. And that's almost a bigger incitement to not do it right there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that you work with is going to be giving you hell from there on out. Why report it?
I have filed a Freedom of Information Act request for these police reports and have never been filled. Everybody says, "Why don't you get the police report?" Yeah, why don't you get the police report? I tried. They won't give it to me.
Yeah, good luck. Just because it's federal law and we're supposed to be able to get this information because we're the citizens that are paying for them to do all this stuff apparently doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean a thing. And if you're a big news organization, you could probably get it. But if it's, me, when am I going to hire a lawyer to go after them for? No, I don't have that kind of money. I'm at their mercy. I can only ask. I've asked them twice. They've not responded. They don't even respond. They don't say yes. They don't say no. They just don't respond.
Yeah, as far as that goes, you can't even get Jeff Sessions to respond to Congress. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not, I don't have a big team of lawyers I can sickle on people if they give me their Bigfoot reports. It just doesn't happen.
No, and that's what they're counting on. Oh, these guys are just public sector. They haven't got any money to sue us with. Just screw them around. Don't give them anything. Never mind the fact that we're violating federal law and by all rights we should be in prison for it. Don't give them anything.
Yeah. What are they going to do? I think that's pretty much the theory. But because I worked on, and again, this is a change of subject, but it's another just a related thing, that the Chicago Mothman cases recently. I'm in a group investigating that, and a lot of people have taken us to task for not getting the police reports. It's not like we didn't try. We asked for them. We asked for the police reports. They're not giving them to us. We can't make the Chicago police give us the reports. It's just, you can't do it. They're going to give you what they want, and you're going to have to take what they give you. So that's that.
Well, there's other ways to apply pressure to them, too, like, oh, here's their switchboard number. If you want the information, you should call and complain.
Mm-hmm.
See how they like their switchboard being tied up by people calling and bitching them because they're not filling out FOIA requests that legally they're obligated to do.
That's not a bad idea, though.
Well, just in the off chance that you guys can still hear me, I guess this is the end of the show, but I will be having Tim back because we had so much fun talking. And meanwhile, everybody be kind to each other. I always try and pay it forward. Safety first, last, and always. And remember, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee. Night, everybody.